Hi, welcome. I'm Nira Berry, your host of Happy and Healthy, where we explore and discover all the many ways of keeping you feeling happy and healthy. And remember to watch my Good to Know segment at the end of each show, where as a life coach, I've always got something to tell you that's good to know. So stay tuned to the end. So my guests today really do a lot to help enrich lots of families in the community and kids especially. So please welcome my guest today, Janice Goldwater of Adoptions Together. She's the founder and executive director. And Judy Sebring, she's a board member and volunteer. So thank you so much for coming today.
Oh, thank you so much.
Having us.
Yeah, for inviting us. And there's nothing that makes us happier and healthier in life than family.
Exactly.
So I can't think of a better place to be right now than here talking with you about this.
Oh, thank you. So, Janice, you founded this organization, and so tell me, what is your background, and how did you come into the adoption world?
Well, that's a wonderful question. I'm a social worker, and I got my master's degree in social work, and then became a therapist. And for me, that was a lifelong dream to be a therapist. But then my first child was born, and I had that feeling of being a mother. And I thought, how can I work in a field that helps connect children and families? So I began doing adoption home studies, which then led me into learning all about adoption, why women choose adoption for their children, why individuals and couples adopt children, and saw there were some gaps in the community. And just about 7 years after I started doing this work, I started Adoptions Together.
Wow, well, that's amazing. It's very inspiring. So, what is adoption in general?
Well, the legal definition of adoption is the transfer of parental rights from one set of parents to another. Adoption is both a legal and an emotional process. And what adoption does is it creates the opportunity for children to be members of, belong to, and be cared for a lifetime within a family that they were not born into. And so adoption is about building families when children are unable to be raised in the family they were born into.
Yeah. So you started this Adoptions Together, and what inspired you to start it, and what makes it stand out?
Sure. When I first started doing adoption work, I saw there were some real disparities in terms of how children found parents. For healthy children who were members of majority groups, there was every opportunity for infants to be adopted immediately and go into a permanent family. For children that had health issues, children that were born exposed to substances, children of other races, older children, they faced sometimes years in foster care before they could be settled in a permanent family. So I had the experience of working in an environment where every child was not welcome. And so I thought, I can't live like this. I'm in that see something, say something, do something school of life. So I started Adoptions Together with the mission of welcoming every child who was in need of a family. You know, in the 80s, in the DC community, we had the problem with the border babies, children who were born to substance-using moms and were being left at the hospital. So one of the things
That's sad.
It was really tragic, because what would happen would be these children would be left in the hospital and sometimes would spend months. Some even had their first birthday in the hospital.
Oh, that's really sad.
Yeah. So I believe that it's so important for an infant to be with their primary caregiver as soon as possible. And so getting those children out of the hospital, into the loving arms of a parent was critically important.
Yeah, so you mentioned that there was different types of situations that you came across. Can you give me an example of one?
Sure. It's at Adoptions Together, because we welcome every child who is in need of a family. We serve everything from parents who find themselves pregnant at a time they're unable to raise a child, who are on a life trajectory that they believe adoption is a better option for their child. And we serve women that have complicated medical issues. We have a number of people who struggle with substance use, and they know they're unable to care for their children. I mean, recently we placed a child who was the 4th child born to a mom living in poverty, and she is really struggling with the first 3. She's actually raising them, but she knows, like, what does it take to care for a child. So she's actually choosing an open adoption where she's met the adopting parents and will stay in contact with them.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, recently we had, actually, it was about 3 years ago, it was a situation that really stood out. It was a young woman who was pregnant with twins. Well, I call her young because, you know, as we get older, everybody looks young. But she was, she was probably more like, you know, early, like she was about 30. And she was parenting 2 children, one that had significant special needs. And so she gave birth to twins, and unfortunately their father was not in the picture. So she was blessed that she had a very caring and attentive dad. So she and her dad worked on making this adoption plan. She looked at a number of different families, including families that were the same race as her, families, she's African American, families that were of other races, and husband and wives, single parents, 2 dads, 2 moms. And she actually chose the most amazing couple. It was a couple of 2 moms, 2 Caucasian moms. And the reason why she chose this couple was because one of them worked in the area of special education, and she knew that in the event that either of her girls had any kind of special needs, that their needs would be met.
Oh,
and so beautiful. They have a beautiful adoption. The girls are about 3.5 now, and they actually stay in contact, and it's such a win-win for this entire family.
That's the whole thing about adopting kids, and it's really a win-win because the family is enriched and the child has you know, it's almost like a life raft for that child, you know, to have, you know, a ability to make their way through life in like a nice family that takes care of them, and that's amazing. So I know that you yourself have how many kids?
I actually have 4.
Yeah.
And when I started adoptions together, my 3rd child, my 3rd child was just about 3-4 months old, and I always dreamed about adopting.
And then you gave birth to 3 kids.
I gave birth to 3 children. So I had a 3-month-old, a 5-year-old, and a 7-year-old, and very busy life.
You had your hands full.
My hands completely
full. And you started
full.
an agency.
And I started an agency, right.
Sure, you got nothing else to do.
That's right, I had nothing else to do, right. So anyway, when our oldest graduated from high school and was going off to college, my husband and I realized we had room for 1 more. So we...
How did you realize this?
Well, the level of insanity slowed down a little bit. I think that, you know, there's something about high school graduation. It was like, okay, we did it.
Yeah.
We raised a child to graduate from high school.
Wow, that is an accomplishment.
It's a huge accomplishment. Yeah. And, you know, all of the bumps of raising children, because, you know, raising children is hard. You know, it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of challenges that we navigate. So, we decided that we would adopt a 4th child. And because we had 2 boys and a girl, we decided to adopt a girl. And our youngest was about 11 and a half.
So when you're adopting, you can choose.
You can choose, yes, whether you want to adopt a boy or a girl. So we looked everywhere. We had our adoption home study done in January, and we actually found our daughter in the following November. She was living in New York, and it was just before her 10th birthday. Wow. She came home to us, and today she's 25 and doing beautifully.
Wow, so you really walk the talk, you know,
Absolutely.
Just, yeah.
You know, it was funny because one day somebody said to me, well, who talked you into adopting a child?
Yeah.
And I said, you know, when you spend every day, you know, looking into the eyes of children and thinking about their hearts and thinking about how critically important family is, nobody needed to talk me into it.
Yeah.
And my husband, you know, fortunately, he was in the same place, and he believes in family and cared and was as interested in adopting as I was. So it worked out great.
And he works he's a child advocacy attorney. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing.
their whole lives are involved in that.
Yeah, that's amazing that that after 3 kids that you adopted, you know, a child who's now how old?
She's now 25.
Wow, wow.
And in fact,
so
she
that's a major accomplishment too.
and she works at the Bagelry in Silver Spring, and she actually today was the baker. She's being trained to bake the bagels, and she will be the first female baker in 33 years at the Bagelry.
Oh, wow, wow.
So yeah, I'm a very proud mother.
Yeah, yeah, and I bet that probably goes to along with the majority of the parents that that didn't that brought these kids up from the young age. But some of the kids are older kids that get adopted as well.
Absolutely. Recently we finalized the adoption of an 18-year-old. Now you might think, why does an 18-year-old need or want to be adopted? 18-year-olds, actually kids up to 21 that are in the child welfare system, don't have a family, and they desperately need a family. So we see a number of mature couples or single people who realize they have, just like we did, room in their heart to embrace a child. And this young man, his dream was to be adopted before, to have somebody at his high school graduation who was his family. I mean, imagine graduating high school.
That's so sweet.
With nobody there to cheer for you.
So sweet.
And getting to court and having it finalized before that graduation was so important to him.
Oh God, that brings tears to my eyes. I'm getting overcome. That's
recently.
That's so beautiful.
Just the last couple of weeks, we placed a sibling group of 3, of 5, 8, and 10-year-old, and the sad thing was the 8 and 10-year-old were living in one foster home, and the 5-year-old was in another, and all they wanted to do was be together. The good news is that they are together.
Oh,
now they are together.
Okay, that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
That really is. It's really lovely. Okay, so thank you so much, Janice, for that wonderful information, and we're going to continue when we'll be right back, also with Judy Sebring, and we'll get some really more information. So I'm Nira Berry, your host, and this is Happy and Healthy. Be right back.
A boy born in Joplin, Missouri was fascinated by anything with wheels and a motor. The odds of him winning both the Daytona 500 and the Brickyard 400 in the same year, 1 in 195 million. The odds of a child being diagnosed with autism, 1 in 68. I'm Jamie McMurray, and my niece has autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs.
Hi, welcome back. I'm Nira Berry, your host of Happy and Healthy, and we're speaking with Janice Goldwater and Judy Sebring of Adoptions Together. So let's continue. So Judy, I wanted to ask you a question. Sure. I know that you've been involved, for many years with Adoptions Together as a board member. So what prompted you to do this?
Well, I was asked about 25 years ago. The person asking me wanted to introduce me to Adoptions Together, knowing that I myself was adopted and how strongly and positive I felt about it, that I could bring something, to the agency, and so I've been there ever since.
Wow. So, and I know, like, as you mentioned, that you were adopted yourself,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right.
I was adopted as an infant, and I just remember, as far back as I can, just that feeling of being special. I was chosen. It was something that my parents really wanted to do, and I remember them explaining it to my brother, who was younger, how special it was that they got to pick us out, and that I got to pick out my brother when it was time to get him. So it was always very special.
That's really sweet. What have you noticed is, since you were adopted as a child and to this day and age, what have you noticed is maybe a difference in perception of adopted kids or the process of adoption?
Well, when I was adopted back in the late 50s, did I just say that? There was it was more, I guess the word would be taboo, and people didn't talk about it as much or as openly, because that was kind of like, I remember kids asking me, having been brought up Jewish and then being adopted, they were looking for my tail or my horns, like, well, don't you want to know who your real mother is or your father, or whether you have brothers and sisters? And always my answer was, no, I live with my mother and father, and my brother is my only brother. I'm not looking, those are my parents. And I realized from a very young age, and still feel very strongly, people can give birth to a child, and not that that's necessarily an easy task, but the hard part is being the parent, is being a mother, a father, whether it's two mothers, two fathers, or mother and father. That's where that's what makes a mother a father. It's not who bears you, it's who raises you.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So what advice would you give to families that may be watching out there that may be thinking about adopting kids?
Well, I would say it's a great thing to explore, and one of the most important things when you are exploring it is looking for an agency that is trustworthy, that has a great reputation of being honest. There's a lot of things that aren't good that go on sometimes in the world of adoption, and you need to really make sure you don't. Back in the day when you were adopted, it was like, here's your baby, bye, have a nice life. The one thing that really stands out being very different with Adoptions Together than almost probably any other agency in the country is that it doesn't just start and stop with here's your child. We have lifelong programs that people can utilize throughout their life, whether it's the parents, the children, if they have questions, from how do I tell my kids that they were adopted, to they maybe feel some need of wanting to know information of their background. We have ongoing forever life programs to help the families, the entire family. And that's very important.
Yeah. And so thank you so much, Judy, for your perspective.
Sure.
That's beautiful. It really is very inspiring. So so let's continue, Janice, with maybe what people should know about the adoption, and what who can be adopted, what the different things people should know about.
One of the things that many people don't realize is that there's about 112,000, like 112,000, 112,000 children across the United States
Oh, wow.
who are waiting to be adopted.
Wow, that's a lot.
112,000 children across the United States living in foster care who need to be claimed and become somebody's child. So these children are children who were removed from their first family because of abuse or neglect, and their family was not able to get organized enough to safely raise them. These are like the sibling group I talked about, like the 18-year-old that I talked about. These are children both in our community and around the country that need to be adopted. Another thing is that adoption is a wonderful way to build a family. And so there's infants who are adopted. There's birth parents who choose adoption for their children as a very proactive and caring way to ensure their children are getting what they need. We see a lot more open adoptions these days where birth parents choose the adopting family, where they stay in contact, some through letters and pictures, some through going to birthday parties and doing holidays together. So it really runs a large and broad span of types of relationships that people have.
Can you give me an example of like maybe some of the kids that might be waiting that
so we have what's called the Heart Gallery, and I know we'll be showing some pictures of children that are waiting in the Heart Gallery. We have 48 children from Maryland, DC, and Virginia who are waiting for parents. And these children go anywhere from 2 years old to about 18 are the kids that we presently have in the Heart Gallery. And if anybody wants to know more about one of these children, they can come to our website. We have all of the children on our adoptionstogether.org.
Could you give me an example of one of the kids?
Certainly. There is a 16-year-old girl who is very athletic and loves math. And she has been in foster care for more than 5 years. And desperately wants a family.
Wow. Well, so before we go on, can you tell me like what the difference is, like, for, as far as like kids that are waiting in foster care or just a regular, adoption,
Sure.
like.
So all of the children that are adopted through our infant program are called voluntary adoptions, meaning that a parent has come to us and said, I want my child to be adopted. Mm-hmm. And those children are placed sometimes directly from one set of parents to the other. Sometimes children are born and they come, we have 8 families who provide what we call interim care, cradle care, where they care for an infant while their birth parent is being counseled to make sure, because adoption is a lifelong decision.
So just temporarily.
Temporarily, yes. So,
wow. And you have these people waiting to do that?
Yeah, so we have these families, in fact.
That must be hard for them to do that. They get attached to the baby.
They definitely cry every time at every placement. And so, for instance, this week, yesterday, we had a child that we've had, a newborn that we've had in care for 10 days. We've been counseling her birth mother, and her birth mother decided adoption was not the option that she was going to choose. Mm-hmm. So she has an extended family member who will be raising this child. So the interim care provider gave her back, gave her bottles and diapers and clothing, and really helped bridge that. We've made sure that the child is going to a safe environment. It's been checked out, and so that child went home. Now we also, tomorrow, will be placing 2 infants with their adoptive families. And so
How old are they?
One is just a month old, and
wow.
The other is 2 weeks old.
Wow. So what would be like some of the reasons to adopt children?
People adopt children for a number of different reasons. The most important reason is that they want to be parents, and that they feel the love in their heart, and that they know they have the resources to raise a child. Some people adopt because they lived with infertility, that they're unable to get pregnant and they want children. Others adopt because they have the ability to get pregnant, yet they have this feeling that they want to bring a child who needs a family into their family. We have a lot of, for our older kids, a lot of experienced parents, families like my own, who said we've got room for one more. And we've our largest sibling group that was adopted was 5.
Wow.
I mean, imagine that, becoming an instant family with 5 kids.
What's the oldest age?
The oldest that we have finalized is 19. And so we've had...
Until what age can somebody be adopted?
We actually could be adopted at any age of our life.
Oh.
If we're in the child welfare system, though, the oldest is 21.
Really? Okay. I wasn't aware of that.
And then the child is out in the community, and could be adopted.
So if somebody's out there dreaming about possibly adopting, what should they think about? What are some things they should think about?
The first thing I would do is to direct them to our website, because we have all kinds of really rich information at adoptionstogether.org. I ask people to think about, to look within themselves and think about their own capacity, in terms of, do I want a child that's the same race as me, the child of another race? Who do I spend my time with? What age child do I think I could best be a parent for? And what is my capacity to help a child heal who may have had early adversity? How open am I to access services and supports when we need it? And as Judy said, at Adoptions Together, we provide lifelong support for the families who we build. And
so if somebody wanted to find out more information about adopting kids, how could they get a hold of you? And why don't you give your website?
Sure. It's www.adoptionstogether.org.
Okay.
We have regular free information meetings. We've got all kinds of resources on our website, including the Heart Gallery that shows waiting children. We've got all kinds of rich information about adoption. And we also have a phone, 301-439-2900, if you want to do it the old-fashioned way. People are welcome to come in, meet us, talk, and just do your homework.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for all your wonderful information. Thank you, Janice Goldwater and Judy Sebring, for being here today and giving us a lot of great information about adoptions and how to enrich your family's life and the kids' life. And so thank you so much. And we're going to take a short break now. And when we return, I'm going to come back with my segment, Good to Know. So make sure you stay tuned. I'm Nira Berry, your host of Happy and Healthy.
Hey, Hard, what's this?
That's my resignation letter.
You're resigning.
Why? Because you're constantly ignoring me. You're half as active as you used to be, and you eat stuff like this. You've been putting me under a lot of pressure lately. That's why I'm ready to quit.
I forgot. I'll do better. Please,
Don't quit on me. Okay. But remember, it's not what you say. It's what you do.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you.
Let's go for a walk.
Uncontrolled high blood pressure could lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get yours to a healthy range before it's too late.
Hi, welcome. I'm Nira Berry, life and happiness coach and your host of Happy and Healthy. And now I'm going to share with you what's good to know. And today I'm going to speak to you about kindness. And kindness can be compassion for somebody else and possibly just being nice to somebody. And sometimes we need a little nudge to get us there, right? So I really like the story that I heard in an article in the newspaper recently. A woman who was in a drive-thru at McDonald's saw that there was like a father and like 4 kids sitting behind her. And it was Father's Day. And so during her time of making payment, she also decided to pay for the father and the 4 kids, and she gave $36 to the cashier. And so when the father came up to pay for his order, he was told that it was paid for. And he was so appreciative that he paid for the 2 other cars behind him. And then those 2 cars paid for the cars behind them. And so it went throughout the rest of the day until 167 people paid for the cars behind them. They all paid it forward. And isn't that beautiful? And so when we think about it, we can all do that. We can all do some kind of random act of kindness or pay forward something that's really kind towards somebody else. So let me know if you can do something like that. I'd love to hear about your experiences and any comments you have. You can contact me, Nira, the happiness coach. You can reach me at happyandhealthytv@gmail.com. I'm Nira Berry, your host of Happy and Healthy, and I hope you have a happy day.